We may as well get this show on the road. I see a lot of people in the room I recognize, and I don't know how many people were there until I clicked that, but I guess 60 people so far. So Daniel Kester's in the house along with Kimberly, Dan Boyd, Steve G, Padre, MH08, Idris Taylor, DePaul 31, Sam As I Am, as opposed to Sam I Am. He had a little discussion about that. Baba Babinski from way up north, Cyberdoc, Prodigal Stranger, JJ, and I'm buzzing down here. Jim's camera at dawn. Mike Leah, M. Kolba greets from Milwaukee. Of course, Renajet from Northern Michigan. Where is Northern Michigan to you? I'm curious because people in Detroit think that like Saginaw is Northern Michigan. And people in, of course, St. Ignace think that Northern Michigan would be Copper Harbor or perhaps Sault Ste. Marie, but we'll see. But yeah, hey, I stayed up a little late last night and watched a little baseball game between Detroit and the Mariners of Seattle, and it went into extra innings. And so my good friend Caleb, who lives out that way and is a big baseball fan, said, "Hey, Steve, we should have a friendly little bet on this series between these two teams." And I said, "Like what?" And he goes, "Well, you know, if Seattle wins, you'll do something, and if Detroit wins, I'll do something." I'm like, "Well, what would I do?" And he goes, "Wear a Seattle Mariners shirt." And I go, "Dude, I'd wear one right now. I just don't have one." I don't have anything against the Seattle Mariners, but I'll admit, I'm not as big of a baseball fan as I am a college football fan. So I watched with great interest the University of Michigan play football yesterday, and I had more emotional investment in that game than I did in the Tigers Mariners. But it was fun to watch. And for those of you who didn't know this, the Tigers won in extra innings, and Kerry Carpenter launched a home run. And I've always been kind of impressed by this. The guy completes his swing and doesn't start running because I played baseball as a youngster. When you hit a ball that hard, you know where it's going. And he completes the swing and just starts walking towards first base. Eventually, he picked it up a little bit, but I mean, it was gone. He knew it was gone. There's no question it was gone. And of course, with modern technology, they've got cameras like on the helmet of the umpire or the headwear of the umpire and 16 other camera angles. But you can see the one from behind home plate as this ball just launches. And yeah, that's a home run. And I think he knew it. So just me pursuing postcards. Good morning from North Alabama. Duncan Campbell, good morning, Steve. Since people like weather reports, it's 55F here, dark and cloudy. Yeah, I've got 81 degrees and sunshine in southeastern Michigan, but they've been telling me the temperature is going to plummet on Tuesday. Plummet is the word they used. So there you go. Merple says if they are domesticated ducks, the ducks at the park are free. You can just take them and no one will stop you. I'm not sure of the context of that, but in some places you got to be careful because there are rules regarding wildlife and so on. And some migratory ducks are actually protected by federal law, believe it or not. So just pointing that out. hey, I made it the first minute or two, finally just painting a ceiling. Perfect timing. Yeah, we've been here for 3 minutes and 22 seconds, but you checked in a little bit ago and you just made it up to the top of what I'm reading. So, Vinny Sluga, what do you think of banning electric bikes? Where? Everywhere or just on the sidewalk so they can be used to run people over? I got nothing against electric bikes or electric vehicles of any sort, but of course, anything has got to be in its place, right? So Mind Bennett says, hi, and hola, all 77 here at Ames, Iowa. Ames, Iowa. School Bus Mike, howdy, Steve, and all from your friend Mike in Westland, driving a 1927 Model T to work. It's a good day for it. You won't have that many more of these this year, at least not with this temperature. I took my Cobra out the other night, and I posted a photograph of myself eating some ice cream, and I said, it's not too cold for ice cream just yet. And I had a lot of people say, but Steve, it's never too cold for ice cream. I said, well, you and I think so, but unfortunately, the ice cream place does close. They will close for the winter. So somebody out there thinks that is true. Cyberdox's weather report was a great band. Plebsimus Maximus, good evening from the Netherlands. And welcome, my friend. I love when people check in from overseas. Roxin, good afternoon, Steve. J82 sunny in Dayton. Janie Seacrest, I'm here early. And guess what? I'm not walking my dog. Does your dog know this? MHOA, Denver went from summer to fall overnight. Timothy Me says, I've noticed all these live streams are done in chronological order. Yeah, it'd be a little more difficult to do them in alphabetical order, but I suppose that'd be possible. Padre 77 and cloudy here, going to rain later. Yeah, like I said, we're going to get some rain, I think, on Tuesday when the temperature plummets. And what's funny is, yeah, temps to plummet on Tuesday. And they're saying we might get an inch of rain, which I think is more than all the rain we got the entire month of September. September in Michigan was dry. Southeast Michigan, dry. I mean, my grass is looking rather like almost like a Sahara desert or something. It's not looking good. Yeah, Signata says ducks could be protected by the Migratory Birds Act. That's what I'm talking about, the federal law protecting them. That's one of the unusual things about animals is they don't really know that much about our borders. And so like you have animals that will fly from one country to another through their migration. And you discover that numbers of something are dwindling. Why? Well, it turns out that their nesting grounds down in South America have been tampered with. And we would never know that unless somebody told us, right? Solaris, the long-haul rail fence, says, well, it happened again in Tennessee. State troopers arrested a diabetic person for DUI, so they didn't care and they were fine with it. Yeah, I saw some stuff. I'm probably going to do a video about that one of these days. James Chisholm, my electric bike costs 70 cents a week to commute on. Imagine that. Pat Z, hi, Steve from Southern Texas. Obvious Captain Howdy from Efland, North Carolina. Efland. Not familiar with Efland. I got friends in the Carolinas. I love the Carolinas. Absolutely. Dan Boyd says, hola to Cyberdoc. Janie Seagrass says, our Dairy Queen in Keokuk, Iowa, shut down every fall. Dairy Queen's one of those franchises. I'm amazed they still exist. I really am. I love ice cream places, but I mean, it's a place that they've tried to do hamburgers and fries and stuff. And I can't imagine thinking of Dairy Queen as a place to eat lunch in the wintertime. Doesn't do it for me. Mindbend says our temp will drop tomorrow, 77 now, could be 59 tomorrow. Driving New England, hey, what do you think about Amazon and Hertz teaming up together to sell cars? Hertz, of course, is a favorite topic, a favorite subject of my videos. I did a video about them this morning. Accidentally launched it at 10 o'clock. Sundays are supposed to be 11 o'clock, but that's just me. I'm not sure what to make of that. I'm not sure if I'd buy a car with the one click. Yeah, just ship that to my house. Get it here by tomorrow. I'm not sure about that. Twilight Child agrees with me. Anatomy of a Murder is one of the greatest movies of all time. I mentioned it in a recent video. I was talking about old school research being done with books. But Anatomy of a Murder is a great, great movie based on a novel written by an American, real star of American jurisprudence from Michigan, a Michigan Supreme Court Justice, John Volker. And because he had spent time as a prosecutor and in the court system, the book is written very, very realistically. Witness Multi-Chick, good morning, Steve, from sunny Southern California. Thank you, my friend, for checking in. James Chisholm, Amazon Prime, 2-day shipping to prison. Oh, boy. Obvious Captain says Eflin, North Carolina is a small town in between two other little towns. Have a good day, everyone. Is that like Pigeon and Elkton and Bridgeport? And if somebody goes, Steve, where's Pigeon? I go, it's near Elkton. It's not far from Bridgeport. or I tell people that Alston is right by Nisala, just west of Baraga. What do you, huh? Roxanne, will Heather be with us today, the Canadian robot lady? I sent her a text. And I did not get a response back, so I do not know. But if she checks in, I'll let you know. So, Opinion Rat says there's nothing wrong with saying VIN number. It's one of those things people get bent out of shape about. And if I say VIN out of context, you might think, what? What's he talking about? But I'll say vehicle identification number once, then VIN. And in print, of course, you would never type VIN number, but when it's spoken, it's a little different. But yeah, 69 Cornet 500 says you got a shout out on one of Liz Amazing's motorhome videos. I mentioned her in my video about the same topic. And for some odd reason, I don't know if everybody's been telling her that, but she mentions me and her. So talking about the issue with the VINs on the RVs. So Tom says I watched that movie, Anatomy of Murder. Thanks for the suggestion. Yeah, it's it's an old-timey movie. It's kind of slow. It doesn't have any explosions or anything like that in it, but it's a really cool movie. Really cool. And it was largely shot on location in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan near and around Marquette. And it loosely was based upon a true story. Very, very loosely. Lou T 1501 says Elkton is just southwest of Drain in Oregon. Drain? The places I'm talking about are in the thumb of Michigan. So Lower Peninsula, Michigan, and the thumb right here. Matthias says, I assume still no t-shirt or postcard. And no, none. I actually checked yesterday just to make sure. And I feel bad. I want to apologize on behalf of our postal service. I suspect that's the problem because quite often it is. Witness Multi-Chicks is 49 likes with over 200 watching Steve on YouTube. Yeah, I show 51 now and 234, but you gotta let it go. It updates. Belios' Anatomy of Murder was a pretty bold as a movie back in the day by broaching a very sensitive topic in the day with Lee Remick. Yeah, and by the way, you'll recall that the judge actually had to caution the jury and the gallery that we're going to be talking about a article of women's undergarments. And when I say the word panties, and the courtroom erupts and snickers, and he's like, okay, now that you've got that out of your system, when the witness says the word panties, don't freak out. Oh, boy. But yeah, Lee Remick was good. Ben Gazzara was good. George C. Scott was good. Of course, Jimmy Stewart was good. Wonderful movie. Wonderful movie. AC Moreland 1, loved your book on the turbine cars. Happy Sunday. Well, thank you very much. Chris Tope, hi from Blue Ash, Ohio. Blue Ash, Ohio. Aaron Freeman, Lehto listener, Legion Lounges. Mark Sparks, still nothing compares to Double Jeopardy for sound legal advice. That's one where somebody came up with an idea and said, imagine if you were convicted of murder for somebody who didn't die. Since they can't retry you, you got carte blanche to murder them. And that's not how that works. But what's funny is, I remember when the movie first came out, and later on you could go to IMDb and look up the goofs, and people would type in there going, that's not how it works. And somebody was removing those. And I'm not sure who edits IMDb, but eventually they left it in. But if you go to Wikipedia's entry, I believe now it comes right out and just says this is nonsensical. But it's just somebody should have said, by the way, this is really dumb. Like, can we make an entire movie based on a dumb idea? I mean, you can. There have been other dumb movies made, but as an attorney, it grinds my gears. Prodigal Stranger says panties should probably not be used in court. I'd go with underbritches. The greatest thing about it is that nowadays, you got your thongs, you got all kinds of stuff, and that's if they're wearing them at all. But the interesting part about the story was not that the undergarments were being worn in court or not, but they were actually not. I don't know if they were introduced into evidence, but there was something important about what happened with a pair of them. So, Cyberdoc, I've been watching The Rifleman with Chuck Connors. The Rifleman's on right before MASH on, is it MeTV or Cozy TV? One of those two. And I always catch the tail end of it. And I'm always surprised at all of the guest stars they had on The Rifleman who showed up later on stuff. Terry Gardner's checking in from Lawton, Oklahoma. Shoy from Havre, Montana. Haver? I'm not sure how Montanans would pronounce that. AC Moreland watched several Ashley Judd movies recently. Yeah, I don't blame the actors or actresses. I mean, at some level, you gotta wonder if they know what's going on. I personally love the movie Donnie Darko. I think Donnie Darko is one of the greatest things ever put on film. And there's people out there who don't like it. There are people who are film aficionados who actually are angry about that movie. And I've read articles where Jake Gyllenhaal allegedly said that he has no idea what the movie's about. And of course, I've had people use that as an argument to show that the movie's no good because even the people in it didn't know what it was about. Well, you understand that they have access to the scripts, the screenplay, but they also don't shoot it in order and they don't see how it's finally edited until later. And one of the quotes I heard where he supposedly said he didn't know what the movie was about was something he said either while filming or right after wrapping the film, meaning that he had not seen a final cut of it yet. And I don't know what he thought of it later, but the point is it's still a fabulous movie. So JW says, "Hey Steve, in February I got a 12 pack of tea that was spoiled. I drank two. I busted out my vocab term, the implied warning merchantability, and got $30. Here's your 33% cut for educating me. Thank you very much. Although we will have to look at this as more of a tip, unless you're in the state of Michigan. But I get your point. Yeah. No, if you buy food or something you're going to consume, not at a restaurant, but from a store, it's an implied warranty that you can eat it without it hurting you. You can ingest it. You can eat it or drink it. And by the way, there's likewise an implied warranty merchantability with respect to a restaurant if you're eating food in the premises. And they don't have to tell you. They don't have to say, by the way, we guarantee this food's good for you. So makes you wonder, was there a date code on them or something else? I've once or twice gotten something from a store that was, ugh, and you're like wondering how it happened. But Andreas, hi, Steve from Luleå, Sweden. Thank you for checking in, my friend. Daniel Kester says Chuck Connors was in a made-for-TV movie made in Eureka. He played the bad guy in that movie. Am I pronouncing that right? Eureka? Dan Boyd says Idiocracy is about the 21st century. It was ahead of its time. Cyberdoc Donnie Darko was awesome, period. Oh, it was fabulous. I like Jake Gyllenhaal a lot. He's been in a bunch of movies I liked, but that one in particular, I enjoyed it. In fact, I saw it again a couple days ago. So just happened to catch the tail end of it, but very, very good. Janice Ellery's checking in from Fort Lauderdale. Randall Spencer's checking from Hope, Arkansas. Obvious captain. Pretty crazy premonition. Damn silly at the time. Pretty scary now. Idiocracy. Fly Chomper Fly. Remember the TV series The Prisoner? He drove a Lotus? Okay, I was unaware of that. It's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah. Janie Seagrass, twice in a month now, my kids have gone to Taco Bell and gotten food poisoning. I wonder if they can get a rebate. I'm more concerned about them not learning. If you touch a hot stove and you burn your hand, do you touch it again in the same month? But Taco Bell, it's funny. I eat there once in a while, primarily when I'm on the road and I see a Taco Bell. I can do Taco Bell. And Taco Bell was one of the originators of the idea that you could hire people off the street and have them making stuff almost immediately. And the instructions were done with pictograms. They didn't use verbs. They didn't use words. They literally have an image of a hand grabbing a trowel. And they have an image of the hand scooping the brown substance with the trowel. And then they have an image of the round container material and this trowel being slopped onto the, and that's read the book Fast Food Nation. You'll understand that. Daniel Kester with the pronunciation says it's Wairika. Okay, I'll take that. In hot water. Sometimes I doubt your commitment to sparkle motion. Oh God. Frank the Rabbit. Idris Taylor, I wasn't happy with the lack of clarity in the ending. Are you talking about Donnie Darko? But not everything's got to be explained to us. It's like one of my favorite movies, if not my favorite movie, is The Prestige. The Prestige, and I could go on and on, but and I won't. But I've had people tell me that they enjoyed it until it got to the end when they realized what was happening, and then they're like, the movie made no sense. Well, and I know that Roger Ebert was quite upset with it also. And he said the movie has a twist that takes out of the genre. It's no longer one of these movies, it's now one of these movies. And it's like just because you're a movie critic doesn't mean that you get to be the one who says this movie is a such and such or this movie is that. Can't you just watch a movie and enjoy it without labeling it and saying whether or not it fits in the genre? But I digress. Witness multi-chick, and this out of context makes it even funnier. You never forget the smell of a decomposing body in a car trunk, do you? I've told more people that it's much more difficult than you'd imagine trying to move a human body. They go, what? Jerry Dodge, I tried watching Bird Box twice, fell asleep both times. I assumed to watch it, you'd have your eyes closed to begin with anyway, right? Never watched it. The premise seemed too odd to me. Agent Ned, yo. Chuck Whitehead, if you want to get rid of food illness, get Gordon Ramsay in your restaurant. Or John Taffer. He'll he'll come in there and shake the place up. Oh, Abelio reminds us that The Sixth Sense was mind-blowing. Absolutely. That movie was so well conceived and so well constructed that if you went and saw that movie for the first time and did not know what the twist was, when you saw it, it was mind-blowing. And you then had to go back and watch it a second time to understand how well it was done. So, Twilight Child says, I saw you in the video. Attorney exposes top 10 car law myths on VinWiki recently. How old was that? I think they posted it quite recently, but I'm not sure. It was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. It may have been a week ago, but it may have been 2 weeks because it was Monday. I know it was a Monday. Reason I know that is he sent it to me on a Friday, said this is going up Monday. Oh. Padre, I see dead people. And remember, quite early in the movie, because I see dead people. When? All the time. Now you take that answer literally and you realize, oh, but don't want to ruin it for anybody. Ask Gutog, I ran the world premiere of The Sixth Sense. Did you really? Where was that? Was that in California or New York? Jay Klein, I'm not home. College tour with my daughter at US, United States, or is it at the University of somewhere? Fatty Butterpants, people are really good about not giving away the twist and The Sixth Sense. Yeah, remember also the secret in The Crying Game? Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. That was one where it was important. Zafar Syed, yes, this is the first live of October. Kung Fu Grip, Sixth Sense, and The Usual Suspects. Tricky flicks. Yeah, I wasn't. I liked The Usual Suspects, but it didn't get to me the way it got to a lot of other people. Oh, S. Gutog says that the Prince Music Theater in Philadelphia, because M. Night Shyamalan lives in the area. Okay, very cool. Emily 35, I object. What to? I don't know, but there must be something to object to. Good day from Australia. How about in A Few Good Men? Your Honor, we object. Counselor, I've overruled your objection. Well, we object strenuously. Next break, they're like, we object strenuously? Is that a different kind of objection? Thank you for checking in. Tanner Schwanke, what happens to money you pay to the court for being in contempt of court? I suspect it goes into the general fund, but I don't know. Are you thinking it might go into like a party fund that at the end of the year they hold a party and buy booze with it? I don't know. I don't know. So Matthias says I was afraid of dead people when I was still alive. So now that you're dead, are you scared of live people? Jerry Dodge, they should make a sequel to The Sixth Sense. I see dumb people. Where? Everywhere. All the time. Agent Ned, have you heard about the, and you don't have to call me Mr. Lehto. Have you heard about the proposed ban on VPNs in the Michigan House of Reps? Yes, yes. I haven't done a story on it yet because it's working its way through the legislature. And I like to think it's so stupid it won't go very far, but you never know. But they're thinking about banning VPNs and also outlawing internet pornography. And, we'll see how that goes. Obvious captain's got to go get some chores done. Have a good one. And by the way, Donald J. Morgan, Airplane, greatest comedy of all time. I saw Airplane and Naked Gun, the original and the remake, and they're being played back to back on one of the movie channels, and I just taped them all. I watched the new Naked Gun with Liam Neeson. It's okay, but it's not as good as the original. And I mean, it's too far. It's too far of a cry from the original for me to really endorse it. Pam Anderson was not that good. I didn't think so. Liam Neeson, the thing about Liam Neeson is that he's facial expressions, he's got one. And of course, the original Frank Drebin had a whole range of facial emotions. And so, although Liam Neeson was saying some things that were kind of funny, the fact that he's doing it all with the exact same facial expressions just kind of ruined it for me. So, James Chisholm says you may have to see people wearing trench coats return to adult bookstores, except, of course, there are no such things as adult bookstores anymore. Pissed Off Handicap Guy says just enough Crystal Falls, Michigan, which is in the UP, heading to Alpha, Michigan for an antique tractor ride. I don't know where Alpha, Michigan is, but I do know where Crystal Falls is. I've been there many times over the left end of the Upper Peninsula, sort of. It's more towards the west end of the UP. Art S. That's not pornography, it's art. And how would you know it? I know it when I see it. And yes, there was a time when the Supreme Court would watch this stuff to determine whether or not it was artistic in nature. Of course, that's why they watched it, because they had to. School Mike Boss, when you get the update of the Turban Car book out, will you be including the costs of the repairs to Jay's car? No. And one reason is I'm not even privy to them. Um, the people working on the car are, and Jay is obviously, but I can tell you that some of the things were astronomically expensive. But I can also tell you that much of the work was done by volunteers. And their time, if you added that up, would have made the cost of the project skyrocket even more. Witness Multi-Chick, why is the movie named 12 Angry Men? Because I believe in the original movie, there's 12 men, aren't there? Back then, jurors were men. Now, they did it today, they'd have to go, 12 angry folks. Oh, boy. Yeah, Tom points out that the movie Airplane was copied from or a parody of Zero Hour. Serious movie with most of the same dialogue. And that's my understanding is the guys who came up with Airplane were watching that movie and they started making fun of it in progress. And they thought, why don't we do an entire movie like this? And what's funny is they didn't need to buy the rights. They could have just done it and said, we're parodying that movie, but they didn't. They actually bought the rights to it. So it didn't cost that much, I don't think. And then did an entire movie, in essence, parodying the other movie. But it parodies, and later movies, of course, also parody other topics. But the bulk of the storyline, I believe, follows Zero Hour very, very closely. Zafar Syed, speaking of which, do you think the justices actually do the work, or is it just their clerks? The hard work is mostly done by the clerks, but the justices all have a point of view. So what happens is they'll accept a case for filing, and then what'll happen is briefs get filed, and then oral arguments take place, and then they go back and they do a quick straw poll and say how many people are going to vote to overturn, and people and they try to determine which way it's going to go. And once they've made that determination, the majority party will get together and go, okay, who's going to draft the brief for us, the majority brief? And then the minority party goes, okay, who's going to draft our brief? And there's a whole process behind who reviews what when, and that's why, for instance, if you read a majority opinion, it'll often say, by the way, the minority opinion says such and such, and here's why we think they're wrong. And it's because they've each read each other's stuff before it got published. But there's a whole thing to it. But famously, there have been some clerks who were known for their writing style, and they worked for certain justices. And there were a couple of justices who had clerks that everyone knew. That clerk wrote that opinion, and it was just signed by the justice who said, "Yeah, this is what I wanted it to say." It's not a bad job if you can get it. Mark Sparks says that Barbara Billingsley was the best actress in Airplane. Excuse me, I speak jive. Oh. Yeah, Lawrence Statton says you can find videos on YouTube where they've intercut the scenes from Zero Hour with Airplane. I've actually seen an entire video where it says, we'll show them in essence side by side the entire thing. But that's Dan Boyd. Wait, panties in court? Wait, you just get here? Maybe they're just briefs. Oh, Jay Klein. I'm in South Carolina at USC. Okay, because if you just said USC, we'd all think Southern California, but South Carolina also. There you go. Janie Seacrest is checking out. Got a lot on the plate today. No day of rest on Sunday for this heathen. Have a great day, everyone. Michael Myers, don't forget about the autopilot. Yes, an inflatable autopilot. It's not me 07 says, sorry I'm late, but my car decided it was time to visit the shop. Hope it's not serious. Daniel Kester and others have pointed out they might be making a Spaceballs 2. A Spaceballs 2. Jerry Dodge, technically, Dunn was under over, and I was underdone. Hey, you're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. No, son. My name's Murdoch. I'm a pilot. See? Murdoch. My dad says that you don't like to play defense. Listen, you little. And Fatty Butterpants got to go out and chop some wood before it's too late. Yeah, winter will be upon us in no time. Michael Hoyland, the inflatable autopilot was the funniest thing I've ever seen as a kid. Yeah, what's funny is now so much of this stuff seems like cliches and so on, and we've repeated these lines thousands of times, similar to Monty Python. But think back the first time you saw it. And for reasons too complicated to explain, I went and saw Monty Python's Holy Grail at the theater by myself when it came out. and I rode my bicycle to the Maple 3 in West Bloomfield, chained up my bike outside, and watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And I remember sitting in the theater by myself, laughing so hard, probably crying, and my sides hurt, and they hadn't gotten through the credits yet. My sister was bitten by a moose. What's your clearance, Clarence? What's your vector, Victor? Michael Hoyland, but why would you write ah? Tigerman 99515, the Maple 3. Um, it had a bunch of different designations. Because I'm trying to remember I don't know if it had 3 theaters at that time. Because this would have been what 76, 77? When did the Holy Grail come out in America at the theaters? So, but later on, they turned it into a 3 theater place. But I think at one point it may have been only a single. Jerry Dodge, I am serious, and stop calling me Shirley. Deanna Kester, Monty Python's The Life of Brian wasn't bad. Yeah, Life of Brian was good, and they did a bunch of other stuff, but the Holy Grail was just, and it's true of a lot of artists, a lot of musicians too. Their first album is the good one, So she was carving her initials into the moose at the time. Moose bites can be nasty. Oh my God. She turned me into a newt. Well, I got better. David Peterson. Oh boy. Dan Boyd, I'm not a big English humor fan, but I'll watch any Monty Python. The greatest thing ever was I saw an interview where they're talking about trying to bring Monty Python to America, and nobody wanted it. And they finally showed it to some people at PBS. And the first people who saw it didn't get it. And they're like, and I think they just did it because they thought, well, it's English. I mean, there's got to be somebody who appreciates it. But I remember discovering Monty Python, and at that point, it's already like old news by the time it got to America on PBS, and going, have you guys seen Monty Python? And it was amazing. Steve is checking in from inside of a Kroger. Kroger. I love Kroger. Oh, Driving New England says the red zone is the loading and unloading of passengers only. There's no parking in the white zone. And a long time ago, and I never did this, and I wish I had, and maybe I still will because there's only 270 people in the room right now. But I was going to have Heather record half of that for me, and I was going to record the other half and use that to be an outro at the end of a video. Where Heather's going to say, thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Just a reminder, there's no parking in the red zone. And I was going to come on and go, no, there is parking in the red zone. It's and the question is, we take it all the way to the obvious conclusion where it's, you know what this is about. You want me to have an abortion. Dan Boyd, I never saw any Monty Python until maybe high school. For me, it was junior high. It was junior high. Emily 35, ever watched any of the Yahoo serious movies? I don't know. Somehow that didn't quite translate as well here, I don't think. Michael Hoyland, those are the people who told Douglas Adams not to produce the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy radio plays in stereo because people wouldn't know which speaker the punchline would come out of. I'm a bit of an expert on Douglas Adams, having read all 5 of the books of the trilogy and all of his other stuff, including his nonfiction, such as the one about going out and looking at endangered species and so on. I've also read the radio plays, and I've also got the radio plays audio. And also, for instance, I'm familiar with the differences between them. And the whole story about how that evolved is fascinating in and of itself. You don't know about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It started out as a radio show on the BBC. And Douglas Adams simply pitched this idea to them about a radio drama that would be science fiction but funny. And the idea came to him, he said, when he was hitchhiking through, I think, Paris or France, and he's laying in a field sleeping off a hangover. And he had a book, Hitchhiker's Guide to Europe, for $5 a day. And he was laying in a field looking at the stars, and he thought to himself, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And just that thought occurred to him, and he pitched it to the BBC, and they gave him a small budget and said, I think make a short run, maybe 6 episodes. And so he would write these episodes, and he had to be ready to end the series at any time because it might get canceled. And people enjoyed it so much they kept extending it. So there's a bunch of false cliffhangers. And the funniest thing of all is that after the videos, the shows took off, he started getting mail. And somebody wrote the BBC and said, I'm writing to you about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a show that you guys have been running on Saturday nights on the BBC World Service, like all around the world. And he said someone wrote him a letter from India or the Philippines or someplace other side of the planet and said, while it's entertaining, scientifically, it's not very accurate. Belio Douglas Adams came to my college when I was there in the 80s, and I didn't know who he was at the time. I really wanted to kick myself. Yeah, Douglas Adams later on became just a monstrously large star in terms of, the books and the movies and everything. And he died relatively young. I believe he was living in California and had a heart attack, which is quite sad. But Land Shas says IJ raised the minimum amount to donate to $25. Did they really? I'm sorry to hear that. There's probably a reason. It was probably one of those things where if you donated $5, they'd have to pay $4.99 in processing fees or something. Me, myself, says the programming language Python is named after Monty Python. I did not know that. Denise Marie, my father and I saw Grail and their other movies in the theater. Nobody else in the family thought Monty Python was funny. Did you ever see Jabberwocky? That's a movie that Terry Gilliam made that I saw it at the drive-in. And I don't think it's ever played anywhere else since then, but I saw it on cable one time. The Prodigal Stranger says Douglas Adams wrote an article in 1999, I believe, called Little Dongly Things, which I still maintain is the impetus for the USB. Oh, boy. Yeah, Belia says, I did see Gallagher, and the question is, did you see Gallagher or his brother? That's the debate that's happening right now, because I think there was, I believe it was his brother, wasn't it? Who was touring using the name Gallagher, and at one point in time they had an agreement, and they didn't have an agreement, and they got in a fight. So it happens. It happens. Harry Selden says when Terry Jones said they set to make out comedy that couldn't be defined, so when Python-esque appeared in the dictionary, he considered it the ultimate failure. I'd have to imagine that he's joking on some level about that, right? Because when they made their original television shows, they were so bizarre and surreal that they were unquestionably, I'm hydrating here, folks. They were unquestionably coming up with something that had never been done before. And a lot of the skits were so different and just out there. But the fact that Python-esque is in the dictionary just is an indication that they had invented an entire new category, whether it could be defined or not. Cyberdoc, have you seen the 2013 movie The East? I don't think so. Doesn't ring a bell. David Phillips, Mystery Science Theater. Yeah. I love the Mystery Science Theater. I'm here to tell you right now, I personally don't like Joel, the original guy who was there. I like Mike Nelson. I like his better, but it's a toss up. And I love their movie, This Island Earth, the actual theatrical release. Oh, I love Mystery Science Theater, guys. Tigerman 99515, but is Python esque in the OED? I'd reach back here and tell you, but I think it's slightly out of reach. So Harry Selden says, yeah, it failed to be undefinable, but not failed to be funny. Oh, I know. I'm getting at that. Yeah, I get that. Belio, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. And the funny part about that is they they took a dumb cliche that people would say and turned it into a skit that was so funny. Hour 3. Okay, well, come again. Michael Krause is the sad thing about MST is when they show a movie I saw as a kid that I thought was scary. I mean, I remember what is it? Santa Claus Fights the Martians. I forgot the official name of that movie. Pia Zadoro is in it, I think. Like they did that movie. And I remember knowing somebody who saw that movie as a little kid who said, "Oh my gosh, this is the coolest movie ever." And then seeing it as an adult going, "Wow, this movie is stupid." So they are looking back on these movies as adults, and it does give them some perspective, I guess. Cyberdoc, I miss Mad TV. Belio, Joel Hodgson was also at my university around the same time doing a puppet thing outside the university bookstore. Is it up in Minnesota or Wisconsin? Padres' Dish Network has an MST3K streaming channel. And Dan Boyd says there's still a Dish Network? Yeah, of course there is. And a Direct TV, too. Fly Chomper Fly, we now have AI. We should take a warning from Forbidden Planet and the danger of the IZD. I saw Forbidden Planet not so long ago. Leslie Nielsen's in that, right? And Robbie the Robot. And the movie's not that good. Very low budget. It's a little bit out there. I seem to recall there's some decent looking actresses in it, but I can't remember if I saw it first on Mystery Science Theater or not. But once you see a movie at Mystery Science Theater, it's hard to go back and watch the original. James Chamelik, what are you drinking today? It's 50-50 again, water and Frost Gatorade, whatever flavor that is. It's gray. Santa Claus conquers the Martians. Thank you, Tom. I forgot the verb. Fights, battles, struggles to vanquish. Samson's Pluto also shows MST3K. Duncan Campbell looked it up in the OED. Python-esque is there. Earliest entry is 1972. That seems awfully early. Joe Pangea is checking in with a couple mugs held high. Crash's Roadrunner Garage says, did they make a yellow convertible turbine car? I just picked up a diecast. No, but I've got a couple of those. I'm not quite sure why they made those, but I've small ones, right? I've got a couple small convertible turbine cars in different colors. No idea. They never made a convertible of any color. Fly Chomper Fly says Forbidden Planet got an Oscar at the time for special effects. Wow. Daniel Kester says Frost Gatorade is light blue. Nah, it's something or other frost. I don't know, icy frost, but it's gray. Ron asks, don't forget about killer clowns from outer space or killer tomatoes. Attack of. So yeah, Michael Myers, killer tomatoes. Tom, my mom's got direct TV. My sister has Dish because more than 20% of the US still doesn't have cable or internet available, or the internet that's available is sketchy and the cable is way out there. Sam's Killer Clowns is on Tubi right now. Helios' Forbidden Planet was great. Earl Holliman plays the cook, and Robbie makes him like 400 pints of whiskey. Now, I remember that. That's pretty cool. Walter Pigeon and Anne Francis. Tiger Man 99515. We'd stay up late to watch Children Outer Limits and also Night Gallery. And of course, earlier Twilight Zone. Daniel Kestris' Hot Wheels made their version of the turbine car. Duncan Campbell's Monty Python's Flying Circus officially ran from 1969 to 1974. Yeah, I'm not really sure when they showed up on PBS in Detroit where I would have seen them. But Vinny Northwest, all I watch is YouTube and Tubi. It's getting to the point now where I think if you were to measure YouTube against networks or cable channels, YouTube would probably be in the top 5, if not, top 10, but maybe the top 5 of simply channels that people watch. If you count the entire thing of YouTube as one channel. Witness Multi Chicks is a fish called Wanda. Great movie as well with the Python folks. I actually knew somebody who saw that movie who wasn't that bright, and they had just seen it. They go, but why was that guy trying to kill those dogs? Uh, oh, Image Joe Cray. The best was LA's first cable system for Hollywood professionals called the Z Channel. I saw a documentary about the Z Channel. Kind of unusual, way ahead of its time. It showed some real art type films. Padre, Kolchak, The Night Stalker. Yes, I remember that. That was kind of wild. X Files before there was X Files. Oh, Michael Myers watching Captain Kirk go crazy on a flight because there's something on the wing. Twilight Zone. He was in a couple. Thomas Brogan. Hey there. Hey, Thomas. Sam, Tales from the Crypt was awesome. I never watched Tales from the Crypt. RBGFIN, The Ghoul. Made me like Mystery Science 3000. Yeah, The Ghoul. Now, here's the thing. There was ghoul or ghoul-like hosts in a bunch of different cities. And a lot of people didn't realize this. So the ghoul in Detroit, who I believe was from Ohio originally, was not the original ghoul, but he was doing it with the blessing of a guy. And of course, so, but yeah, the ghoul played weird movies and made fun of him too. So Belio, not every movie with a python in it was good. Who saw Nuns on the Run? Eric Idle and Robbie Coltrane, who later on played Hagrid. Yeah, no, yeah, don't get me wrong. It's not like everything you touch turns to gold. Um, like I said, you see Jabberwocky? There's a reason that movie has disappeared. Oh boy. Stop spam and am checking in late from Virginia. Shaban says cable is some great stuff, but it's so limited to a few things. Doesn't justify the price, the hundreds of things you never. Oh, I always joke about that. I've got like 9,000 channels. I mean, I literally think I can go to channel 9,000, and it's playing music, but um, and I look at the movies, and I will sit there and go through all of them. Not a single one's worth watching. Then I'll start going forward a day or two looking for movies, and if I see good movies, I'll tell my DVR to pick them up for me. And even then, I'll sit down. There's nothing on the DVR. Like what? So yeah, Jay Klein says the cool goal was in Cincinnati. Dan Boyd, does Starlink provide fast internet speeds? A YouTuber I watched mentioned setting one up when he moved to a sparsely populated place. I've heard a lot of different things about Starlink, but I don't have any, so I can't talk about it. But I'm curious to know if anybody else has it because I've heard both good and bad things. And I know that the way the contract is written, I believe they can play with your speeds. And that's always a concern. In other words, it works fine right now, but it might not work fine tomorrow. That's my concern. As an attorney, I'm paranoid. Remember that. Heather says she's working, but she'll try to check in if she can. Oh. Jason Brindamar, I have Starlink. Okay, how's that working out for you? Michael Myers, I don't have Starlink, but those I know that do like it. And Jay Klein says my dad loves his Starlink. James Chisholm says Wayback Machine Internet Archive has tons of great classic horror movies in the public domain. Really? I did not know that. I've also found places where you can find government films that are in the public domain, army training films and stuff. Those are always funny. Audrey Consul, how are you today, sir? I'm fine. Thank you for asking. MHO8 says you need to give the CRL a substantial raise. Don't tell her that. Mark Miller, sup, y'all? Scott Summers, Elvira. You're not talking about the song with the Oak Ridge Boys, are you? There you go. Lou T1501. We have Starlink. It's great, but the speeds can vary depending on where the satellites are relative to you. Interesting. Okay. Sam, Skynet. Yeah, Skynet's not here yet, but I'm hoping. Shaban says I've been thinking about how Psycho was based on a true event. Well, many movies are inspired by true events. Oh, David Peterson, remember those teenage sexploitation films like Teenage Vampire Vixens or Pom Pom Girls? A lot of those they'd have, three of those running at a drive-in on a Friday night. It's not me. Oh, 07 says Starlink liked to take a break every hour at the cabin I rented in Oklahoma. Wow. Audrey Consul, is the $100 bill still on the shelf? Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see it from here. I'm trying to remember where it was last. Yeah, I can see it. It's actually, I'm pointing on my screen. It's not going to help you any. It's actually leaning up against one of the microphone stands on the far edge of the set there. Harry Selden says there's a security company in Chicago named Skynet. Apparently, the name is still usable. James Cameron should have trademarked it or something. Sam as I am says there are currently 1 to 2 Starlink satellites falling back to Earth every day. So many are falling, it'll be a huge problem. Do they burn up or do they just hit stuff? Like when Skylab hit Australia. Sorry about that, guys. Look, we launched it. It was up there for a while. Who'd have thought it would fall back down? I mean, gravity? It's not going to work up that far, does it? Super Duper Cooper says Indiana, we had Sammy Terry that would host late night B movies. Turks once, it's hard to believe Douglas Adams has been dead half as long as I've lived. I remember him on May 25th. He was kind of it was kind of sad how young he was too. And I think he had a heart attack, and I think it was one of those just unexpected things. I don't think he knew that he had any conditions that made him prone to that. So Michael Myers says things returning from the sky are supposed to land in the South Pacific. Yeah, but it's so hard to aim 20 years in advance. Harry Seldon, Steve Dahl did a song about Skylab? Really? I remember being on the radio in a morning show joking about Skylab. I was a sidekick on a morning show a long, long time ago. And during a storm, there's a storm while we were on the air and something hit the roof. And I was the sidekick and the other guy, my partner was the host. And we both ducked when we heard the noise. We started laughing. And I go, hey, it was Skylab. But that was earlier. Daniel Kester says Skylab missed Australia by the northeast about 800 miles. Oh, you would think we'd have better aim than that. Kevin Smith is the Tom Likas show still a thing? I'm not sure. I remember when he was on, but primarily on the weekends. I knew a bunch of radio stations that carried him on the weekends. But I know obviously he was huge. Where's he from originally? Was it Seattle? Maybe where his show is based. So Michael Myers says Skylab came back early because NASA funding was cut off. So what could they have done to keep it in orbit longer? Would they have to go up and push it with something? Mindbend, I remember 300 baud. It's like a chalkboard compared to the speeds now, right? Yeah, Tom, I started with a 300, then 1200 to 2400. Then, of course, 64 and 128. Andrew Lee says that in Alaska, in Nome, Starlink is a game changer because it's orders of magnitude better for most people here. Yeah, there's going to be places where obviously it's light years ahead of anything else. Infernal Machine, Bozo and Steve in the morning. No, I was the sidekick. The host wouldn't be Bozo. William Page, good afternoon, Steve. Good afternoon, William. Dimebag Coins, as always, nice to see you, sir. Thanks for the interesting stuff to watch. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. James Chisholm took all week to download a book. Remember when Netflix used to be where you could download movies at the very, very beginning? And I remember people saying, like, I'm downloading a film. I'm going to watch it tonight. Oh, those are the good old days. Jason Brindamar, my Starlink works fine here in Flat Rock. Just want to change due to pricing. I assume you Flat Rock, Michigan. Not sure if there's other places called Flat Rock in America. Elliot Polach, Steve Lehto, WWWW. I never worked at W4. I know people who did. At one point in time, Detroit had 4 rock and roll stations, and one of them was WWW 106 FM. So Emily 35 says the Belladonna Heritage Museum in Western Australia has pieces of Skylab. So it must have hit land somewhere, right? We refuse to give them back, finders keepers. I agree. If we launch something and it lands on your property, it's yours. I mean, if you want to give, you can't. No, of course not. I say hang on to it. It's probably valuable. So Harry Seldon says, I remember Netflix mailing out DVDs. Well, that was the original business model. And then they went to streaming. Dean Stevenson, I'm here just to say hi to Steve L, Dan E, Boydster, Mexican Spec, Buff Del Campo. Did I miss anything? No. Witness multi-chick, maybe getting a landline is a good idea because telephones are powered by the electricity in wire. I remember, I think it may have been the storm of 1978, but I remember as a kid where we lost power in suburban Detroit for several days. And the only thing I had keeping me alive was that telephone. I could call my friends. I'm all bundled up in my bedroom, wondering if the pipes are going to freeze, but I can talk to my friends. Jerry Dodge, many cities no longer run phone lines in new neighborhoods. Herb Wagner didn't Howard Stern work at W4? Yes, he did. That's the remember he worked in Connecticut and then he worked in Detroit. W4 went country in 79 or 80. And then that's when he went to DC. He was in DC for a while. So JJ, I listened to CKLW at Geneva on the Lake. CKLW, of course, is out of Windsor, Canada, Ontario, the Big Eight, and they're a huge, one of the greatest top 40 stations of all time. They refined it down to a fine science. Many of the DJs were fantastic, and their ratings were insane. So MHOA, trickle the water to prevent pipes from freezing. Okay, now you tell me. I'm talking about 1978. Image Joe Cray, pig vomit. You saw the movie but didn't read the book apparently, right? And that's one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot, but in the book he refers to as pig virus. In the movie they call him pig vomit. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's too esoteric to go into, but there's a legal reason that you would call somebody pig vomit, not pig virus. But I'm not going to get into it now because it's just too complicated. JJ says AT&T is stopping copper phone installations next year. Doesn't surprise me. Trying to think of last time I saw a working phone on the wall of a house. Oh, I got to go way back for that. Way back. MHO8, you could pick up CKLW Minnesota. At night, you could pick up CKLW pretty much anywhere in North America. It's a clear channel station on a wide open frequency. There's several stations like that, but CKLW is one of them. And of course, people would listen to it because they were playing such great music. Thomas Hines, I have a working landline on my kitchen wall. Do you really? Wow. I'd hang on to it just as a conversation starter. And Dan Boyd points out that the copper lines hardwired do give you great sound. Okay, Jason Brindamar, I still have a late 80s cassette from 98.7 before they became smooth jazz. Remember when you could just record a song on a cassette right from your radio? I have a mini disc now, but I loved it. Those are the good old days. Smooth jazz. How long did that last? Like a week and a half? 98.7 WLLZ, Detroit's Wheels. I knew a bunch of people who worked there. Michael Myers, I have an aunt in her 90s who still has a wired phone. Well, of course you do. my grandmother had a party line, but that was a couple years ago. But yeah, that's one of those things. I was actually at a restaurant in Calumet, Michigan earlier this year, and they had a phone with a dial on it on the counter behind the bar. And I looked at the waitress. I go, "Does that thing work?" And she goes, "Yes." And she got a phone. And answered the phone. And I'm like, but that's like you can't dial an outgoing number on that, can you? And they'd apparently taken an old looking phone and put some new guts into it, but it did work as a phone. But yeah, the technology is changing to the point where some of that stuff is now so archaic that it won't work. Image Doc Ray says, just so you know, it's Image Doc Ray. Image Doc, like you shoot X-rays? I don't know why I like Image Doc Ray. It's it sounded so exotic. What kind of images do you analyze? Do you analyze like PET scans or CAT scans or X-rays or N-rays? What do you do? Mark Miller's got a landline as a backup. Fly Chomper Flies, WOR-FM in New York City was 98.7. RKO radio station Drake Chenault used to have Murray the K. Cousin Brucey. Back when disc jockeys had those cool names. The Geeter with the Heater. I always thought that was the greatest name for a disc jockey. The Geeter with the Heater. He died about a year ago. And I know somebody who knew him. And I read an article about his passing. And I was so convinced that the reference to a heater was a reference to, a wireless hole punch. And it turns out that when he was younger, they go cruising. And a big thing was whether or not your car had a heater in it. Because some cars didn't have heaters, the heaters didn't work. And so if you're driving around in cold weather, you might be able to talk a young lady into getting in the car with you because you had a heater. And so he became the Geeter with the Heater. Which is just so goofy, and he used that for his entire career, and he was a great radio guy. Brian Wiacek, how do you get good concert tickets? Is there a method to get good seats? It depends on if you object to paying lots of money, because you can now find good concert ticket seats, but they've upcharged them. I mean, and so I'll be the first to tell you, I sat in the first row of an ELO Jeff Lynne concert last year in Detroit, and I paid for those tickets. And I've been in the front row of a couple shows lately, and I look at the tickets and go, well, I can sit here for this, or I can sit here for that, and I make a judgment call. I've got another concert coming up later this year where I've got front row tickets. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've seen this band several times, and I'll be the front row for one. So looking forward to that. But yeah, I'd rather do that than buy them from scalpers, because the problem with scalpers is if the show gets canceled or something, you don't get your scalped money back. You just get back the face value of the ticket. So Dan Boyd says Steve Kirk, the jerk, on WING Dayton. Never heard of him. But yeah, a lot of disc jockeys. Titan the Planet says Mr. Lehto isn't reading my chats out because he doesn't want to say my name. I've had it before. People come in here and they write really goofy stuff to see if they can get me to say it, and I don't, So Mark Miller, I must be in the front row. Bob Euchre. Shaban, I took 2 weeks off the internet. I listened to the radio. I loved it. Some songs were annoying. I just turned it off then. I will occasionally on long trips turn on the radio. I've got Sirius in one of my vehicles, but I'll turn on the radio. And I'll sit there and scan the AM. It's amazing what pops up there sometimes. Really crazy stuff. Janice Ellery, I get good seats, but you pay at least $500. Depends on the show. But because the seats I bought for the upcoming show did not cost $500 a piece. But I'm telling you right now, I used to go to shows like at Pine Knob in Clarkston, north of Detroit, and I'd be way in the back. And you look up front, and you see people in the front. You're like, how'd they get those tickets up there? And they either know somebody that paid a ton of money for them. Titan says the whole story why I use this name, but I'm not trolling you. Oh, no, I realize those are both astronomical names, and putting them together does create a pun of sorts. Dustin Carpenter says Gino the New Guy and K102 also made parodies of country songs. Well, my favorite thing was there was a radio station in the Bay City, Saginaw, Midland market called WIOG 102.7, 102.5, 102.7, 102. Anyways, they called themselves the new 102, the new 102 for years. The new 102. And later, when somebody asked them, why do you guys still call yourselves that? They go, it's like New York. 102.5. I apologize. I should have known that. 102.5. Harry Seldon, I used to camp out overnight for tickets. I never did that. I never did that. I know it's a cliche. It's even made it into movies and TV shows. Frasier got talked into camping out for Bruce Springsteen tickets once by Roz, but I've never done that. Jason Brindamar says it's funny that we're allowed to call it Pine Knob again. I never stopped calling it that. I refuse to call it like the DTE Consumer Energy Savings Field Stadium, whatever. No. Pine Knob. Jason Brindamar, 95.5, the Fox. Well, don't forget, the Fox was used also in Detroit for a little while at 99.5, the old WABX. Chuck Whitehead, I'm surprised talk radio is still a thing. Yeah, it's dropping up, but there still are some people. And most of the shows are syndicated. That's the way you can get good calls and whatnot. James Hanley going to see Billy Bob Thornton tonight. Never knew he's in a band. I think he's one of those guys who has a band thing, like Keanu Reeves and a few others. No one's saying the music's any good. Dan Boyd, if their format was new music or current stuff, they weren't lying. Well, they made it sound like the new was reference to them. The new 102. Dustin Carpenter and KMJZ became Thunder 104. Their slogan was, "This ain't your ma and pa's country." Was it new country? Young country? Like YCD in Detroit? Harry Seldon, I still call Allstate Arena Rosemont Horizon. Yeah, no, there's some of those, they've changed the names, and it's like the FTX Arena. And what happens when the company goes bankrupt? That's kind of embarrassing. Cyberdoc, how can one be both new and improved? Well, the improvements that took place from the old to the new. Emily 35, does the music have to be good if they're having a good time making or playing it? Yes, because I'm paying to see it. Back Assword's Weird World says some YouTube shows should be radio simulcast. I've often thought that, like, what I'm doing right here is the equivalent of a talk show, right? Like a call-in talk show. I'd be happy to put this on the radio, but got to find somebody who wants me to do that. Kevin Smith, Talk Radio, WNIR in Akron is huge. Yoda Beast, Sears Tower is and always will be the Sears Tower. Do they have a different name for it? Like the cheesegraters.com tower or something? Oh, Cyberdoc says it was a Seinfeld reference with the new and improved. Yeah, some of Seinfeld's jokes out of context aren't that funny. Witness Multi-Chicks, a serious question. I've got 4 videos on my YouTube channel for over 2 years now. No issues with YouTube. But Scientology wants me to take them down. Should I be worried? Well, I mean, Do you want a whole church mad at you? Hang on. I'm looking you up right now. Is that the name Witness Multi-Chick? Hang on. It's not finding it for me. I mean, I realized I could click on my screen, but then I'd lose my place here. Witness Multi-Chick's got 58 videos. And all kinds of stuff, including content about Scientology and its legal shenanigans. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the fact that you've upset them. And the reason I'm laughing is, as of right now, unless people who watch this stream were to click on your name and go to your page and watch some videos, the top video I'm looking at right now shows 562 views. And so there's a thing called the Streisand effect, where if something's happening over here, but nobody's paying attention to it, and you don't want people to pay attention to it, the worst thing you do is go, look, everybody, don't pay attention to that. So if the Church of Scientology was upset that Witness Multi-Chick has got videos up, including one entitled Case Number 22 STCV 40862, Second Amendment Complaint. If they don't want people watching that video, I'd have to imagine that they'd be better off just going, well, it's got 500 views. Who cares? So I don't know how to answer your question. Andrew Kruchowski, if you remember Windows XP versus Vista, it can be new and unimproved. Yeah, how about Windows 95? When you're I had a Windows 95 computer that literally crashed if I looked at it funny. I could just turn my head and it would crash. And I had somebody ask me about it. I said, well, it's kind of like trying to fall asleep in a house that you know is on fire. Oh, Janet Ross, DOS, the disk operating system. Witness Multi-Chick says it's been reviewed countless times by legal. You have to understand, there are people out there who will just say, like, I don't like that. You should take that down. And I used to actually comment. I stopped commenting, but I used to get comments from people who would say, like, you put up a video, you need to take it down. And I go, why? Well, you kind of made fun of something I like or something. You know, it's like, did I say anything wrong? Anything factually incorrect? And so if you posted something on YouTube and someone says you need to take it down, why? Do they have a legal reason or they just don't like it? Because I got news for you. The internet's filled with all kinds of stuff that I don't like. I just ignore it. And by the way, there's all kinds of people who don't like my videos. Guess what? Ignore them. Just don't watch them. You know, and I there were times where there were people like, you did it again. You put up another video I don't like, and you watched it. Whose fault was that? Image Doc Ray says Windows 95 was a huge improvement over Windows 1.0. Roxanne, Windows ME, the Millennium Edition, the Numanium. You just move the mouse wrong and you get the blue screen of death. Dan Boyd says a lot of CNC machines are controlled by programs which work only on XP. Really? You hear about that from time to time. You've got these high-tech machines that can do all kinds of cool stuff, you know, down to 10 thousandths of an inch, you know, down to 10 thousandths, like where that's the, you know, and it's running some old program like that. Richard Terhune, First Amendment, free speech. Yeah, that old thing. Windows Vista, Richard Terhune. Janet Ross, Unix, Linux. I was talking to one of my computer gurus. There's a couple people I consult with computer questions, and he's talking about the programs he uses. I go, "Oh, you don't use Ubuntu?" He goes, "Don't laugh. Some people do." Joel Jensen just subscribed to the channel of Witness Multichick because that's another thing that could happen if more people were to visit her page. Oh. Andrew Kuchowski, I'm on Ubuntu. Is it Ubuntu or Ubuntu? Does it matter? Jerry Dodge is still the Office 2003 Pro license key memorized. I remember in the good old days, Windows and the various word processing programs. You get a stack of disks and somebody's handwritten on the front what the key is to unlock it. Dustin Carpenter is pointing out that YouTube is a private platform. Yeah, so the First Amendment thing, and Dustin, you are correct. I purposely didn't go down that lane though. Somebody else was talking about the First Amendment, generally speaking, but most people, when they're told that they can't say something by anybody, the first reaction is, "This is America. I can say anything I want." But obviously, the uh, Scientologists aren't the government, and so David Himenga says Ubuntu, Ubuntu. Okay, thank you. Ron S. Installing early Windows updates overnight by dial up, only to wake up and see it failed and have to try another night. Oh my god. Yeah, I remember those days. And by the way, if you looked at how big that file was back then, now it'd be something literally downloaded in like a fraction of a second, you know? Janice Ellery, remember Fortran? Fortran? My dad, when he went to college, took some computer programming courses, including Fortran. I just remember hearing him mention it. And then I remember years later, he went and worked at a place that had one of those big IBM computers that had the punch cards. And I thought that was so cool playing those punch cards, you know? It's like, whoa. And now you look at the punch card system and you go, what? How did they come up with that? Belios is in the early days, Bill Gates would go to different computer clubs and yell at them that they were stealing DOS. And of course, there's a whole story about where Bill Gates got DOS from, originally called QDOS, and having to pay off the guy who actually wrote the code. Another story altogether. Jerry Dodge accidentally giving your PC a virus by downloading Linkin Park num.exe. Yeah, the exe might be a giveaway or VBS, but Linkin Park, great band. Although sadly, the lead singer passed away. Padre, about police chases, it amused me how people often use their turn signals, which seems counterproductive. Well, it's not going to actually throw the police off if you don't, but I suspect it's more a matter of habit. But yeah, I actually watched a couple of those this morning. Shaban, thank you for the show and chat, everyone. Dan Boyd, COBOL is a computer-oriented business language. So where'd the second O come from? Shouldn't it be COBOL? Oh boy. Aviva Rabinowitz, I remember DOS. Yeah. James Chisholm, a Commodore PET 2001. Andrew Kruchowski, an IBM 026 Punch. Harry Seldon, Windows helped spread viruses by hiding file extensions. And don't forget that some of the odd file extensions like VBS, most people didn't recognize as being a program. And that, of course, is what led to the widespread I love you virus problem. So, Michael Myers, my first computer had MS DOS 2.11. Probably came on like 2 floppies, right? Jason Brindamar, a cop using a turn signal. Yeah, right. The prodigal stranger, the alarm system where I work is DOS based. It's getting harder to find floppy disks for backing the thing up. I was going through my desk drawer. Let's see if I can find it. Hang on. Oh. Yeah. I was going through my desk drawer and I found a little oh boy, now it won't close. Hang on. There we go. I found a little card, but it's not one of these cards. It was like a floppy, but slightly larger than this. And I recognized it went in one of my old, like one of the first digital cameras I had. And I don't have anything that reads that size. And I'm like, it's probably blank, but I don't know. So David Himenga, how do you feel about all the license plate readers showing up in Michigan? On cop cars, you mean, or stationary? I was driving on 75 not long ago, and I got passed by a cop car, a local cop car, that had just these readers, devices all over it, just cruising through traffic. I'm sure just reading license plates. But yeah, Daniel Kester, the old Apple IIe. My dad had an Apple IIe at one point in time. Elliot Polach says iOmega made the zip drive. I remember the zip drive, and that was, of course, it was a weird midpoint. It stored a lot of information, but you had to buy a separate drive for it. And the problem is that occasionally the drive would have the click of death, is what Kim Commando called it, and where you'd put a drive in, it would start clicking, click, 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 and the drive had gone, and not the drive, but the actual zip drive, the zip we might call the medium, had gone bad, and it was gone. Like you couldn't rescue what was on it. Steve G, you mean your junk drawer? No, this is my desk drawer. I've got a junk drawer in my kitchen like normal people. Oh boy. Tom, the click of death. Yeah. Mark Sparks installing Windows 95 with 22 floppies. Oh boy. Yeah, I've mentioned before, I was really into video games in the early arcade days. Defender, Asteroids, Missile Command, that era. We're talking early 80s, Williams Defender. And I would like to get a Williams upright defender for my house. I'd love to. And the problem is, I've studied this a lot, more than I care to admit, that the boards that run the game go bad and need to be replaced or rebuilt periodically. And with modern technology, they could replace the entire brains of that computer with something that would like dance in the head of a pin. But I don't think anybody's done that yet. So I'm hopeful. I want it to have the exact same graphics, exact same controllers, but I like it to have a more bulletproof system running the game. So Carl's Corner, try installing Novell 3.11 with 50 floppies. What was Novell? Name rings a slight bell. I'm not sure. Art S. Let's talk important stuff. How is the folding chair and the watches? Well, there's no folding chair on the set anymore since I replaced it with the Flexi Spot office chair, and I'm sitting in another Flexi Spot office chair right here. And watches, I'm still wearing the Breitling Montbrilliant Olympus, which I picked up a couple months ago. My other Breitling is in an auto winder, where every 6 minutes it gets turned over for 2 minutes, and it keeps it wound and happy. DePaul says you can find a guy to repair the boards. I know, no, I know you can, but it just seems stupid to me to have to just repair the boards periodically, as opposed to, because I plan on using it. I've got too much time on my hands. I want to waste some time. DePaul says Novell was a Unix-based operating system. Okay. Joe Pangea says switching directions was so cool in Defender. Well, the key to Defender was you had to learn to drive it, to fly at full speed and fire, and you literally just fire as fast as you could, because as fast as you hit the button, it would fire. And as you're flying at full speed doing that, you could clear the sky. And I, at one point, got so good that I could play Defender indefinitely on one coin. And I knew the guys who owned the arcade, they let me do that. And at one point in time, and this was before cell phones, so I don't have a picture of it. One point in time, I had the top 10 scores on the Defender game in Bad Axe, Michigan. Prince Albert's, my first computer was a Commodore VIC 20, good for FLOG, which is text-based golf. Where you type in, swing my driver. Jerry Dodge, I couldn't find Ben in your video this morning. I think he's in the exact same place he's in right now, leaning up against a microphone stand. I don't normally give that away, but the video's up, so what are you going to do? CyberDoc, what's your position on the flock camera surveillance system? I'm not a fan of them. I've done a bunch of videos about them. I don't want to live in a surveillance state. MHOH is looking to replace my office chair. Looks like Flexi would hit the spot. If you can hang on just a little bit, I'll be doing an ad for them relatively soon, next few weeks. And when I do, there'll be an offer with a big discount. So hang in there. Mark Miller, you to Mang, Steve Lehto. Tom, you didn't buy it like George did with the Frogger? Well, the Frogger never made it home, though. But Scott Summers, Williams Pinball. Yeah, Williams made both video games, like they made Defender. They also made Joust, and they made a bunch of those games, but they also did pinball machines. And I like pinball machines too, but it would take up more space, and I wouldn't. I never enjoyed a pinball machine as much as I enjoyed playing Defender. Michael Myers' Breitling is not using the same mechanism they used to. You're talking about the actual innards of the watch. I think is the technical name, the innards. This Breitling is about 10 years old, I believe. I did not buy it brand new. So I believe the mechanism is called a 1461. Tigerman 99515 says some people do actually call it a movement, a movement. Like I said, it's the innards. Padres says I could put a quarter in the Evil Knievel pinball machine and play for hours. Do you remember when pinball used to give you 5 balls for a quarter, and they dropped it to 3? I thought it was the end of the world. I thought next thing you know, they're going to raise gasoline over $1 a gallon. Michael Myers says I'm not an expert, but I've watched some videos. Oh no, I know what you're talking about. Breitling has gone through some changes in the last few years. It's a very, very old and well-known Swiss manufacturer of watches, and I've always admired their style. I like the way they look. I have a Navitimer also, but they have done some things with their movements. But my understanding is they're still very, very good. But I have not bought a brand new one in quite a while. My Navitimer I bought brand new, but I bought that 20 some odd years ago. And then I was looking for this particular style. Yeah, it never shows up on camera. But I like the numbers, the Arabic numbers. I don't like the hash marks. There you go. So you can see the numbers. There's a 1, a 2, a 4, a 5. Oh my gosh, the 12 is missing. How will I know when it's lunchtime? Oh boy. Steve G, my first race took me up to 285. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I once found a pay stub from one of my jobs at a gas station years ago. Michael Myers, I wear an Apple Watch these days. Well, it's funny. I know people wear smartwatches too, but I've never gotten into the smartwatch thing. I've had a couple exercise watches that did things, you know, connecting to my phone and whatnot. But don't get me going about Fitbit just yet. Tigerman99515. You got to read the book about longitude. Which book is that? I've read several books that discuss things like that. I read a book that I did a book report on my second channel not so long ago about the history of timekeeping, the history of timekeeping. And I've also read the book, The Measure of All Things, which talks about the creation of the metric system. And of course, the line that they drew from the North Pole, figuratively speaking, down to the equator. Daniel Kester, Space Invaders and Asteroids. Yeah, those were two of the original old school games. Space Invaders got to be kind of dumb. Asteroids, if you got good at it, you could play all day long. But then it got kind of boring. So, Padre, my first job paid $5 for one day. It's like working in the Henry Ford plant, Ford's plant with the Henry Ford, the original Henry Ford there, back in 1913, $5 a day. 1913. Cyberdoc, please watch the 2013 movie entitled The East. Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. I'll look for it. Janice Ellery, I started at $3.35 an hour. I seem to recall that being a wage I got at one point in my life. I'm just trying to remember which job it was. Oh, Belio, the search for longitude. The search for longitude. Hang on a second. Okay. Search for longitude. The true story of the lone genius who solved the greatest scientific problem of H. Dava Sobel. Huh. I will order that. It looks interesting. I'm fascinated by those books. I'm still right now wrapping up. I know I've been talking about this. The Song of the Dodo, which I've been reading now for like 4 weeks, is over 600 pages long. So, but it's hard to describe, but it covers so many topics. It's so well written that when you get one of those books, it's like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. So I like that. Joe Pangea. Okay, all you wonderful people. It's 5:10 a.m. here in South Australia. I got to sleep. Best live stream on YouTube. God bless. And thank you very much, my friend. And again, watch for falling pieces of Skylab. We're not sure how much more of it might be up there. Oh, Jason Brindamauer says, save the Flat Rock Dam. I didn't know it was in danger. Art S says, in 1913, $5 is a quarter ounce of gold. Yeah. Remember those gold coins back then? $20 gold piece. I love those things. Sam, Centipede and Karate Champ are some. Oh, Centipede is another one. Oh my gosh. Centipede. If you said, Steve, you get to have 2 video games in your house, Defender, Centipede. And I'd probably stop watching television. Although you have that on in the background, right? Michael Myers, I'm bidding on a job in Switzerland for 26, 27. If I get the contract, I might go take some tours. I went to Switzerland years ago, and they at that time Breitling did not give tours of their factory. I was so bummed out. I'm like, but I've got one of your watches. It doesn't always get you in the door. Carl's Corner Tempest. I played Tempest about 2 years ago. It's an old arcade place up in Traverse City. And I went in, they had Tempest. Did not have Defender. I'm like, oh, okay. Daniel Kester did not enjoy Centipede. Centipede was weird. It had a bunch of interesting things, but if you weren't paying attention and you got too many of those things that fell down and interfered with where you could roam, you had to know to clear those things quickly. So, Janice Ellery's Space Junk. Oh. Jason Brinemar or Galaga. Galaga. Is that the one with the things that like you weren't sure if they were animals or spaceships, but they looked kind of like I remember those. But Art S, a $5 gold piece is almost the same size as a nickel. And of course, that's one of the reasons that there were people who were taking the original V nickels before it said 5 cents on them and gold plating them and trying to pass them off as $5 gold pieces. I'm not sure how many of those they actually did that way, but there was a whole story about that. Dr. Rick, so long, Steve. Have a wonderful afternoon. It's starting to push 3 o'clock. It's not pushing it hard, but it's pushing. Art S, how about Dig Dug? Yeah, I never did Dig Dug, never did Donkey Kongs. A bunch of those games I never did because I was one of those people that just I had a couple of games I liked and I played them. Jason Brindamauer, remember Quicks? Is that the one with where you're basically drawing things and you're trying not to get hit? Um, there was also Missile Command. I actually saw a guy. I never got this good. I saw a guy who could play all day long at Missile Command. Like he knew exactly where to put the spreads, and I remember watching. It was so much fun. But Image Doc Race is. It's going to take me a while to remember that. I apologize. Any pinball machine is better than any video game. They were full body physical. Um, yeah, but I also the real question is how sensitive were they set to tilt? Because the whole point behind pinball was you were supposed to be allowed to use a little body English, which gets us back to wasn't she playing pinball in Anatomy of a Murder? I think she was, but Joel Jensen Pong. Jason Brindamar, yes, Steve, that was Quicks. I remember seeing that at an arcade for about a week, and it just disappeared. I just remember there was an arcade in a bowling alley in Birmingham, and never bowled there, where you go play video games there. So Andrew Kruchowski giving it the mustard or a little English. Tigerman 99515, 1972. I went to the watch show Basel World in Switzerland. They trotted out the first digital watch. People were 10 deep trying to get a peek at it. Swiss were worried it would kill their market. Yeah, we forget that the original digital stuff was really, really cool. And then it turns out it was so inexpensive to make that it flooded everything. And so digital watches and digital calculators. And I remember seeing an ad in like Popular Science for a calculator that had 4 functions: add, subtract, multiply, divide. It was like $300 in like 1970s money. And you're like, at the time, you're like, wow, imagine that. And now it's like a giveaway app on your phone. So times change. Mark Sparks suggests a deaf, dumb, and blind kid could play pinball. You know, that's what I've been hearing for years. And then Old Paint 71 says, and then it got to the point where you could send in a cereal box top or a bunch of them to get a digital watch. Dan Boyd, my dad had early calculators. I'm going to throw something out here. It's going to cause 3 people in the audience to go, oh, I remember those. But I had a Hewlett Packard calculator in high school that had that wacky logic to it. So you didn't type 5 times 7. You would go 5, enter 7 times, and it would give you an answer. And I remember actually having a kid come, can I borrow your calculator? I'm like, sure. Your calculator doesn't work. I'm like, yeah, I never said it did I? And they give it back to me. But I never had to lend my calculator to people because they couldn't get it to work. So Andrew Kruchowski, my dad, also used such a Hewlett Packard. Anybody else? Anybody else? Beely, I remember going to Sears and playing with the 4-function calculator, $99.99, but we'd use it to spell the word hell. See, upside down. Image Doc Race is the HP 75. But believe it or not, I think the one I had was earlier. I recently tried to look up the type I had, and I couldn't find the exact type. But yeah, they call it a scientific calculator. Old Paint points out that some people jokingly call it reverse Polish notation. And then the Prodigal Stranger reminds the Douglas Adams near the beginning of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy refers to a group of people as the kind of people who think digital watches are neat. Alex A, HP 45, the best. Hang on a second. I'm wondering if that was it. HP 45 calculator. Oh, that's looking close. That might be it. Here's one on eBay for $129. This one does sine, cosine, and tangent functions, but it was something like that. I looked it up once and I forgot what it was, but it was old. It was old. Andrew Kruchowski, all the gray hair and geeks, please stand up. Shell oil. I remember seeing an entire book. Somebody published a book that was filled with calculator jokes. See, you get 37 guys out in the desert and they've got 78 oil wells. What do you got? And oh, Shell oil. Ha 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 ha. Image Doc Ray, Steve Wozniak sold his HP Scientific to fund the founding of Apple. And imagine that. Some guy got himself an HP Scientific and thought, wow, this thing will never go out of style. Oh, Alex, I have the HP 40, but the power adapter broke. Fatima Butterpan says, when you say all old people, please stand up, he's too old to actually stand up. Steve G, I did pay 170 bucks for my Walkman in 1982. I remember when the Walkman came out. My first thought was, how stupid is that? You got this thing you carry and it's got a tape in it and you got these weird headphones. And then about 3 minutes later, I'm going, wait, I can listen to music anywhere and I can ignore everyone else? Like, what a great idea. Andrew Kruchowski calls out the HP 12C. Hang on a second. HP 12C, HP 12C. Oh, that's a financial calculator. Yeah, no, mine was vertical. Mine was portrait. It was not landscape. But I'm familiar with those also. But yeah, and it goes, the history of that calculator goes all the way back to 1981. Oh, Image Doc Ray and strapping that to your arm to run. I remember having, when I was in law school, which is 1989, I remember having a Walkman Sport that actually opened up and it closed and it had like a really nice seal around it and it would clamp shut. And then I would run with it. And the problem with it was kind of heavy. I had to carry it when I ran, but it would keep the moisture out and I could run in the drizzle, for instance. But I the problem is it ate batteries. It would eat up batteries. And so I got rechargeable batteries for it and had to replace those things almost constantly. Witness Multi Chick is back. Did I miss something? No, but we're not going to be here much longer. I'm certainly hoping that none of the people in this discussion have gone to look at Witness Multi Chick's YouTube channel, where there are videos that she has been asked to take down by people who don't think it's her right to post those videos. And as I pointed out earlier, they only had 500 or so views each. And pointing out the existence of those videos on her channel, Witness Multichick, might actually cause more people to go look at those videos and see them. And that'd be counterproductive then for the people who complained about those videos. But I simply pointed all that out a long time ago. But you were here, so you didn't miss that earlier. Alex A. I paid $425 for an HP 45 in about 1975. Sounds about right. And don't forget, you could buy a used car for that too in 1975. NZ, Kiwi, NZ, hello from New Zealand. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate that. We're not going to be here much longer, but I'm glad you checked in to say hello. Belio remembers being in a store and putting on the headphones to the first Walkman and playing some music. And I thought someone had turned on a loud stereo in the store. It was so ingenious, the idea that you didn't need much power just to run some headphones, and therefore you'd also have the power to run a tape or a radio. I used to listen to Los Angeles morning radio on my Walkman also, and I spent a lot of time listening to Kevin and Bean on K Rock. K Rock. Kevin Thomas, have you registered for the SEMA show? I always forget about SEMA. I've never been there. I probably should go one of these days. When is it? Witness Multichick says, thanks, Steve, but the channel is actually called at Multichick. At Multichick. I think also people would simply click on your name, it would take them there. When I went to YouTube, I typed in Witness Multichick and it took me to your channel. So either way, people might find the channel that way. Dan Boyd had a Texas Instruments handheld calculator from the 80s, which turned out to be a piece of junk. You tap one key and the damn thing would display 3 characters. It's great at multiplying, dividing 3 character numbers, as long as they're always the same 3. Cyberdocs wishing everyone a good week and a good day. Cyberdocs says Heather never made it, and I apologize on her behalf. I know she tried, but she's also working. Blah, blah, blah. Good show today, Steve. See you next week. Dude, where you been? You've always got to let me know you're here. The regular folks, like blah, 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 always say hello, if nothing else. Just hello, hello. Dan Boyd, SEMA is usually in January, I think, early in the year. I'll have to take a look at that. And now Kevin Thomas says SEMA is November. Oh, boy. Dustin Carpenter, remember when adding machines weighed 60 pounds? What about the ones you had to crank the handle on? Remember those? My grandfather had one of those. Jason Emmons says, I love a good pair of headphones when I mow the lawn. Cancels out the mower noise, and so you can hear your music at top volume. Yeah, I've never tried that. My mower's too loud. Prince Albert says, Steve, I definitely did not go check out Witness Multichick's channel, and I did not subscribe. So I'm certainly hoping that you did not click on any of her videos. I would think that's the next obvious statement. Carl's Corner says, I said hello and got crickets. I commented something else you said earlier. I recognize the name. I know you did. Jay Klein, I'm off to walk around USC, which is in South Carolina, with my kid. Have fun, please. Bob Blah Blah says he tried a pair of Sony noise canceling headphones and they're great with lawnmower noise. Cool. Yeah, Daniel Cash says, don't forget the old cash registers had to be hand cranked also. Ka-ching, ka-ching. Emily35 says users can't click on other users to find their channels. Only moderators can do that. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not know that. But if you go to YouTube and type in Witness, WHITNESS, like witness, but with an H, at Multichick, which is spelled the way you'd guess, type that into the YouTube search bar, you will find her channel. So. MHOH is amazing how fast some of those grocery clerk checkout clerks could check out some items. Yeah, of course, now they just scan stuff. But I remember in the old days, watching people, type the stuff in. And Fatty McButterpants going to end it for us on an appropriate note. I like to try to pick up chicks at the YouTube search bar. There you go. So that's going to be it for me this week. Mark Sparks says, could you use your mentally impaired voice? It's not a mentally impaired person. It's just the people who complain about stuff. And my favorite complaint that I've ever gotten, and this is a real person, actually posted underneath a video I did where I was talking about factor meals and I showed myself pulling a factor meal out of my microwave. And a guy actually said, just see the door on his microwave, the inside of it's white. What an idiot. And I think he was serious. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.